Hello, it's David from David Savoury Electrical Services Limited, and today I'm waffling on about electrical wholesalers and city electrical factors in particular who have an upcoming event, CEF Live at the NEC on 6th and 7th of June. If you plan to attend, then register beforehand at ceflive.co.uk so that you can take advantage of a 50 quid saving if you spend over a ton. Not an amount to be sneezed at if there's a new toy you've had your eye on perhaps. There's even a free calibration offer, so what's not to like? Although Nigel hates these sort of events as he doesn't like being trapped in a room with salespeople, but I like to go along for the tool porn, to get the goss on what's new, and to give my 2 penn'orth to stallholders about their products. And besides, anything I can do to make Nigel's life a little bit more miserable, I will always jump at because, well, I'm a right git. I'm not sure which date we're attending. I haven't even figured out how next week pans out yet, let alone what's happening next month. So if you are there, then you may spot me skulking around spending more company cash on things I never even knew I needed. Seeing as I've brought up this CEF event, it seems a worthy time to have a little natter about wholesalers in general, as cities tend to be my supplier of choice, as I've hinted at in previous videos. But I'm sometimes asked why that is, both by people commenting on these videos and by account managers at other electrical stockists who would prefer me to be blowing my business loot on their wares instead. Well, there are factors we all look for in our suppliers, pricing being an obvious one, but it's not the be-all and end-all, so let's put that on the back burner for now and instead start with location. Here's a map of my patch, the kind of area Nigel and I tend to cover. Actually, it extends further than this as we do venture north into Coventry, south past Stratford-upon-Avon, west out towards Henley and Arden, and occasionally east into Daventry. But the 640-ish square kilometres of largely rural market town shown here are where Nigel and I can usually be found buzzing around during any given working day. Incidentally, this rather wonderful straight line here is part of the Fosse Way, an ancient Roman road route that's nearly 2,000 years old, 370 kilometres long, and never more than 10 clicks from a straight line. Those crazy Romans sure didn't like curves, or they perhaps just didn't know how to dig one. I don't know, but I digress. Let's stick Savoury International Headquarters onto the map here. There I am, the orange dot at the arse end of Royal Leamington Spa. Now let's plot the places available to me for electrical materials. These locations are approximate, and there may be other wholesalers I've missed. There are certainly DIY stores around that I haven't added in, but these are the guys I tend to have credit accounts with the exception of Toolstation and Screwfix, the former having no trade account facility, and Screwfix having turned me down twice in my formative years for their Trade UK account facility. So to hell with them. You'll notice that there are a nice cluster of suppliers for me to choose from within minutes of my wheel spinning the van out of the HQ twat cave, which is nice, but they tend to be rather clustered. If we're as far north as Coventry, then there are plenty to find there. There's a Screwfix just on the south border of the city here, for example, and if we're as far south as Stratford, then again we have other outlets to choose from, but otherwise they're all dotted about here on 2 closely located industrial estates, with the exception of SRM, who sit playing with themselves out on the other side of Warwick. When I did my van tour video a few months ago, some commented that I was carrying an awful lot of stock items around with me. That's because if we're working away from the Warwick and Leamington areas and we get caught short, it can cost a fair old bit in time and diesel to head out to the nearest wholesaler, so we tend to carry quantities of common components. With the exception again of Toolstation and Screwfix, all these suppliers have a van or 2 and will offer to deliver goods to site, which is great if you have a list of bulky parts to order and if you've made arrangements for the delivery to occur and for someone to be at site when it turns up. If you're already out on site and you find yourself lacking particular items, then instead of leaping back into the van for a speedy dash to the nearest supplier, you can ask them to bring stuff out to you. But I find that short notice deliveries are usually more miss than hit, with any given supplier reporting the van to be already out, too short staff for that day, they can't get there before 4 p.m, etc. Besides, Nigel and I often see a piecemeal day where we might visit 2 or 3 places to undertake smaller jobs, so it's better to stock up at the start of the day than to sit around waiting for a van to appear, risking a knock-on effect for our later appointments. You know, there are 2 other suppliers missing from here which are also an important influence on our working day, so let's add them in. That's more like it. When Nigel and I climb into the van on any given morning, pissed off at having to spend another day at work and in each other's company, we often like to start off with something unhealthy to cheer ourselves up, so our natural course of movement takes us to Mackie's or Greg's, which are located nearer this industrial estate rather than the one housing Denman's, Rexall and Leamington Electrical Distributors. That gives us 4 places where we're more likely to stock up for the day's action. Toolstation and Screwfix are fine, but I don't have credit accounts there and their electrical ranges are more limited, so CEF and Edmondson's are the next closest ports of call. In terms of geography, CEF is slightly nearer and has a larger car park. Eddie's is tucked away at the heart of the industrial estate and has less parking available. It's not uncommon when visiting Eddie's to get stuck behind a fat chap in an articulated lorry as he tries to manoeuvre it into one of the other business units there. It just doesn't make sense in this scenario to drive past cities to get to Eddie's, unless Eddie's has something in stock that CEF don't tend to carry. Sometimes I will go out of my way just to visit Eddie's to keep my account ticking over, and I like the guys and girls there, but it's just the basic economics of the thing. Cities are closer, easier to park at, and they're next door to Titan Storage, where I have a 3 square metre black hole for chucking tools and surplus stock into. So when account managers call me up asking why I don't spend more with them, the main reasons are because they're further out of my way, and the availability of nearby unhealthy snacks is perhaps lacking. Hatton Electrical Wholesale and SRM are well staffed and well stocked, but unless I'm in their neck of the woods, I'm just not likely to be popping in. And to be honest, I never used to use CEF when they were located at their previous site on Scar Bank in Warwick, because again, it just wasn't really en route and as accessible. So let's concentrate on the cluster closer to HQ here. There's International Headquarters, and here are my two nearby industrial estates. On the Heathcote estate we have Edmondson's, Cities, Screwfix and Toolstation, and on the Sydenham Industrial Estate we have Denman's, Rexel and Leamington Electrical Distributors. There's also McDonald's and Greggs to note again, of course. The location of Denman's and Rexel is a little curious, I find. If you go back about 10 years on Google Street View, you can see Denman's was once a Newey and Ayr, and if you only have to turn the clock back to 2017 to see Rexel was Wilts. All these brands, along with others such as WF Senate, Ross Electrical and Parker Merchanting, come under the Rexel umbrella, and Rexel have recently been sweeping them away in favour of the single Rexel brand, but they've chosen to keep Denman's under its own name. What I find a little odd is that both Rexel and Denman's are virtually operating back to back on the same industrial estate and are surely in competition with each other. I'd have thought the better value would be to site one of them in a geographically different area where they can compete with a non-Rexel wholesaler or provide services to somewhere which lacks a wholesaler entirely, such as North Leamington. Presumably there are reasons for why things are the way they are, but I find it most perplexing. Then again, what the hell do I know about the wholesale business? Let's keep this geography in mind, but move away from it to talk about product range. Most of my day I'm out on the tools, so when it comes to authoring estimates for upcoming work, that tends to happen evenings or weekends. And this is a problem because I need to know what product range these places have, what's in stock locally for collection and what it costs. Toolstation, Screwfix and Denman's have paper catalogues I can peruse, which is handy to get an idea of range and cost, if not current stock. CEF have now also joined the catalogue party, with issue 1 of this 1500 page whopper now available to pick up in store. Unlike the Toolstation and Screwfix affairs, you won't find pages taken up by plumbing parts or builders bollocks. This is 100% porn just for wee sparkies. But what about websites? Paper catalogues are like so old school. I mean, when was the last time you popped into Argos to pick up their catalogue? Once a staple of every British living room. We know Toolstation and Screwfix have excellent websites which show range, pricing, local and national availability with click and collect and delivery options. But how about the wholesalers who are less public facing? Well, CEF and Denman's are at the forefront there. In City's case, they've had the ability for me to see stock and pricing online for a good while now, but it was previously hampered by a hopeless search facility. Here's a tweet of mine from last September where my attempts to find a Vari-Lite dimmer switch resulted in it returning toasters. Fortunately, early this year they stuffed some decent algorithms up its bum and now the search function operates pretty flippin' efficiently. Although last week when searching for an SWA splice kit I still got toasters. I don't know, maybe they're just a go-to thing when the search has no hits, or maybe someone at Cities brought a job lot of toasters and they're having trouble shifting them. I'll bear them in mind when my trusty Russell Hobbs has burnt its last bagel. The new and improved Denman's website, which went live last year, also works pretty well at informing you of range, pricing and availability. While the catalogues are useful for an offline browse or for when out on the van, a website with the detail of what is actually being sold and the price it's being sold at is essential for someone like me who has to put the long hours in when preparing the paperwork. So let's talk about pricing, the pounds and pence of the thing. When my business was new and jobs were only just trickling in, I would spend many hours poring over the prices of all the wholesalers and maintaining a spreadsheet of common parts and where they were best sourced. We can see from this, for example, that at that time, smoke alarms were a few pence cheaper at Denman's, Wago boxes, or Vargo boxes, were probably best sourced from Cities, fuse fan isolators from Eddie's, cooker connection units from Toolstation, etc. We're only talking pennies difference here. These small cost savings added up on the larger jobs, but when the work ramps up, taking the time to drop in on multiple wholesalers or scouring their catalogues and websites to ensure the prices haven't all shifted all starts to become too troublesome, and you have to factor in the lost time and diesel into whether the shopping around is actually proving financially worthwhile. From my experience, the wholesalers are much the same on pricing for the common components, and often Toolstation or Screwfix will clock in cheaper for some of the basics. It's the wholesalers' wider or exclusive ranges that are their value, especially when it comes to commercial products that the more public-facing retailers won't tend to stock, or if they do, they may be brands of questionable quality you perhaps don't want to risk your reputation on. While the internet will likely always be cheaper to source materials from, being organised enough to ensure orders are placed in time, waiting for deliveries, getting stuck with surplus stock and having to return defective goods can all be rather aggravating around the balls. With a few exceptions, I prefer to rock up to a proper local sales counter to stock up. If you're starting up a business as a Sparky, then you need to open an account with whatever electrical wholesalers you intend to use, otherwise you won't get their trade pricing. Nothing new here, it's the same with the plumbers merchants. The public pricing for a cash sale can be a lot different to what someone with a trade account pays, and if you favour a particular supplier who is doing the business for you, then they'll hopefully look after you. So for me, Cities are one of the easiest wholesalers to get to and park at. They're close to our morning coffee stop, their website tells me what they've got, prices generally meet my expectations, and they now have a proper paper catalogue for offline use, a flick through which will make me aware of the wider product range. I've already found a few things I didn't know they did. Oh look, they even sell toasters. I also like that Cities put on events such as CEF Live, because if you're a one-man band you can become a little isolated with new technologies and industry changes unless you're actively researching them or getting out to events like these. CEF have also previously run localised Tech Talk events for major changes such as 17th edition Amendment 3 and 18th edition, where they've bussed customers out and provided a pint afterwards, something I'm definitely all for. The only downside to report with Cities is their paper invoicing. If I buy from Eddie's, Denman's or Rexel, I'm emailed the invoice within hours, which is very handy for when I'm billing my client. Cities haven't yet got my account onto electronic billing, which means I sometimes have to wait a few days for it to land, or I have to call the branch in office hours to check pricing on any special order items I've had in. Electronic invoicing cuts waste, saves space in the office and makes finding an invoice easy via a search string, but I'm sure that's something that they're working to change. So that's a little whiffle on wholesalers. For what reason do you use who you use? Will you be attending CEF Live? Do you reckon your CEF branch manager could have your Denman's branch manager in a brawl? Why do the account managers all wear those long pointy brown shoes, and where do they get them from? All these questions await your answers below. Thanks for watching.